Okay, everyone out there in YouTube land, good to talk to you guys. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but I have been pondering it and talking to a lot of other people about this subject and seeing if I'm not just going absolutely fucking batshit crazy. Um, but many of you guys might think I've already gone batshit crazy many more than a million times in this life and other lives. So, oh well, you can say I'm crazy or not. It doesn't matter because this is the awareness I was getting for a long time and it didn't make sense. So I started to try to ask questions that brought me more awareness and more awareness and more awareness. So this is where I've got with it so far. So if you guys have a different awareness that I'm having for it, then please share it and I might open up a new avenue of what's possible and what's not possible. Okay, so when I first started really getting into Access Consciousness, which is founded by Gary Douglas, which I really appreciate all they've done for my life because my life has drastically changed since actually it was Rika Zimmerman who turned me on to Access Consciousness. And on my healing radio show, I often say I'm the Magnus, no, what is it? Magna cum laude. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm a magna cum laude wielding graduate of the real or imagined Rika Zimmerman School of Excommunicated and or decertified access consciousness facilitators. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why I say that. But anyway, I'm not going to get into all those reasons now. But one of my favorite access consciousness facilitators is the person who turned me on to access consciousness, which is Rika Zimmerman. I've listened to a lot of what she's done after she left Access Consciousness, and I don't blame her for leaving Access Consciousness at the time. Access Consciousness needed to go through a drastic transformation. Since Rika left, Access Consciousness, well, it was actually as she was leaving, Access Consciousness was just becoming a global movement, which just drastically shot up around the time she was leaving. She doesn't get credit for that, but I think she was one of the impetuses, one of the biggest impetuses for millions and millions of people coming to Access Consciousness because we found out about Access Consciousness from her. And some people in Access Consciousness don't want to recognize how amazing she is and how amazing she was for Access Consciousness because they like to badmouth her. Or I think some people are just using the distractor implants of jealousy because they realized that she was so fucking amazing that they couldn't handle having a female leader in Access Consciousness that was more popular than the founders of Access. But that's what happened, and that's what drove her away from it by all the criticism and all the stuff. Because her hands started twitching like Dane's did after he said he would never have his hands twitch when when he saw Gary's hands twitch. And Rika said the same thing, and her hands started twitching and stuff like that. I don't know if they're still twitching, but anyway, my hands have twitched many times when I was doing a lot of, well, did more than twitches. I started doing these spiral things, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I just let my hand go. Let it go, let it flow, let yourself go, slow and low, that is the tempo. I started doing all kinds of hand dances, hand jive. Anyway, I never learned the hand jive. But anyway, I'm going like really slowly into this because I want like the people that think I'm crazy to actually turn it off and go to another video or just go to another channel because you're not going to be ready for what I'm going to say. But since you read the title, maybe you're going to know what I'm going to say anyways. But anyway, so the title of this video is going to be, Is Josei Toda Alive Today? In a Soka Gakkai, which is what I've been a member of all my life, and I love the Soka Gakkai in Los Angeles and Orange County and San Diego. Actually, less in San Diego. I was the Young Lions leader back in the 90s. I had about 60 or 70 young lions that I took care of, that I tried to home visit. I think I visited in about 5 months about 20 or 30 of them. So that was pretty amazing because I wanted to visit all 50 something, but Young Lions stopped after that, and I actually moved to Orange County, and I became an area lead. No, I became, what was I at the time? I was a group leader, then I became a district leader, then I became an area leader, then I became a vice regional leader right before I moved to Soka University campus and resigned all my positions because I wanted to focus on my 4 years. For 10 years, I went to junior colleges and I was studying everything I could possibly get my hands on when I had time, because I was working and supporting myself since I was 20, when my parents kicked me out of my house. Kicked me out of their house anyway. I was eating too much food, they said, taking up too much space, breathing too much air. But anyway, I don't blame them for that, because that's how you sometimes make a revolutionary. You have to throw them out on the street, and then that's like hard love. And anyway, it worked. So I am everything I am today because of my parents, and because of my ex-girlfriends, and because of my last two wives. Or I'm still married to one. Did I just say that? Anyway, so I'm going around this very slowly because I'm just trying to get the energy ready for me to say what I'm going to say. So who is in the SGI? We don't always, like in other Buddhist sects, like the Varashana. How do you say that? I forgot the Diamond Way, which is Buddhism that was mixed Buddhism and tantric religion in Tibet, which became the Diamond vehicle, because there was the Hinayana lesser vehicle, there was the greater vehicle Mahayana, and people from Mahayana and Theravada both. You can call it the school of the elders too if you don't want to be offensive, because Mahayana calls it Hinayana, but the Hinayana people call it Theravada, which means the way of the elders, or the school of the elders. So this Varish, I can't remember the name now, how to say it in the Sanskrit or whatever version it is, of the Diamond Way, which is the Tibetan Buddhism, which is actually an amalgamation of Buddhism and tantric religion. And they fought when Buddhism first moved in there, and they were killing each other until they finally decided, okay, so one of the great, whatever the titles of the leaders of the Buddhist movement, said we have to figure out how to make peace, because Buddhism is not about violence, and we've been killing each other. And the only way we can do that is we have to figure out what's similar and what's different in the two religions, and somehow figure out a way to amalgamate them. So it becomes a hybrid religion. It's not really Buddhism, it's not really tantric, it's a offshoot of both. So anyway, the tantric religion, unlike a lot of Buddhist schools, is very into finding out who your past life person was. So all these Rinpoches and all these, I'm not saying it right, probably Rinpoches, and the Dalai Lama and stuff, they always try to find out who the next person is once they're born again. But that, we never do that in Mahayana. Very seldom is it done in Mahayana or Theravada, which is otherwise known as Hinayana by Mahayanas. And the reason we call it Hinayana is because that's what the historical Buddha called it. He said everything I preached before the Lotus Sutra was a lesser vehicle, so we call that all lesser vehicle, even though we kind of separated before the Lotus Sutra, even though everything should be considered lesser vehicle prior to the Lotus Sutra. But anyway, that's a whole long subject. Just got home from work. Okay. Someone just told me they want to call me to call them, but I don't want to call them right now because this video is more important. Can't message you time to time. God, how do you fucking shut off this goddamn thing? Okay, someone's fucking messaging me, and I don't know how to close it. Close window. Okay, I just tried up Line, because Line, a lot of people in Japan don't have Skype, but they have Line, and I took forever to sign up for Line. The only problem with Line, I don't know how to fucking figure out how to, like, change your status to, like, leave me the fuck alone because I'm making a video. But anyway, that's what I want to make it to. But you're gonna hear this ping 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 if she keeps freaking messaging me, and I don't want to talk right now because I'm in the middle of a fucking video. Okay, anyway, enough of the cuss words. So it's not a popular thing in SGI to go like, is Makiguchi alive? The Makiguchi, the historical founder of Sogo Gakkai, is he alive now in a new body? Is he reincarnated like they do in the Diamond Way? But I wasn't actually wanting to do that, but I just kept listening to Access Consciousness founder so many times that I started going, wait a second, he is teaching the final teachings of Buddhism. And I made a lot of videos about how the final teachings of Buddhism have not yet been taught. That doesn't mean that they weren't taught in the well, they were taught, sorry, they are in the I actually made the video. It's called the most revolutionary writings in Nichiren Daishonin. So those are the final teachings, but they're not really taught as the final teachings yet because people weren't ready for them, but they were published in English in the volume 2, and a lot of other schools of Nichiren Buddhism says they're not real. They're not really Nietzsche. Well, okay, maybe they weren't, because if you want to get into past lives, well, I was one of the. I won't get into that now. That's not good for this video. Anyway, I did it. I talked about it on others who I was in the movement called Nichiren Buddhism in the early days after. Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that now. But that's what I found out through past life regression therapy and other things. I was one of the main leaders that I won't talk about yet until you guys are ready. What I'm talking about now is who is Josei Toda in this life. So it's come to my awareness the founder of Access Consciousness is Josei Toda. Now, when I first got that awareness, I was like, wait the fuck. The founder of Access Consciousness was born in, I don't know, the 40s or 30s, because he's pretty old. But the second president of the Soka Gakkai died in the 50s, so that would not be possible if we lived in a linear reality, or do we live in a linear reality? But that was the first thing, is okay, is there some kind of dual reality going on, and have I moved into the other dual reality? That the timelines have all got shifted. I don't believe that's so. So I had to ask more questions to get to the final, and I've talked to other people, and I don't want to name who I'm talked to about, who are past life regression therapists, hypnosis people that are psychics and other things that at least I wanted to go over with them. Do you think I'm crazy with this notion? And they said, no, this actually sounds like you are onto something that's fucking big. Okay, so Gary Douglas, the one we know now, although he's in a body that appears to be, I don't know, 70 or 60 years old. I don't know how old he appears to be anyway. He rides a horse. He's freaking very athletic. It wouldn't be physically possible for him to be the reincarnation if that was his original body. Okay, so now we're gonna have to go off on the deep end, because I'm also one of these, and there's very few, and there's a lot of people that say they are, and there's not really any way to verify it. And I don't really care about verification, because verification, I know who I am. I don't need anyone to verify it, because there's no way to verify the infinite possibilities that exist, and I exist within them. Okay, so I'm also a walk-in. So a walk-in, what that means is you borrowed the body that you live in now. It was a person's body who didn't want to continue being here, so you took over the body. So with me, it happened when that person, Timothy Giannakos, Giannakos, was about 1.5 or 2. His dad was very abusive to his mom, and she got him locked up because he was doing all kinds of bad stuff. But one of the main ways she can get him locked up is turn him in for drug dealing, because he was selling LSD. And actually, my older brother, if the story is true that he tells, which I don't believe, a lot of the stories he told me growing up, he's a good storyteller, so I can't really verify that any of them are really true, because he told me all kinds of fucking crazy shit. And a lot of them I knew weren't true later on, like the little people that lived in the grass that he didn't want me to walk on in the backyard. But anyway, he also said there was these caves down the hill in Laguna Canyon that were they had these Sasquatch type creatures in there, and I fucking believed that until I was about 5 years old, because he didn't want me to go down there without him or something. I don't know. It was pretty trippy. And anytime I would go to those caves and like him and Brooke would run away, I'd be like fucking running for life, because I thought these Sasquatch characters were going to come out of the cave. Anyway, so I went through some abuse growing up, so give me some leeway here. I also got beat up a lot by my older brother and his friends, and Marty, which is Tito Ortiz's younger brother. Tito Ortiz is the famous World Wrestling Federation champion. No, it's not World. It's a not WWF. It's Ultimate Fighting Champion. He's been, you know, for a long, long time. He was my real good friend, but his older brother used to beat me up all the time. He used to also beat up Tito Ortiz all the time, and that's why he got. Anyway, I'm digressing here because I'm trying to like give you some background of what a walk-in is, and I don't know why I have to digress on all these things, but anyway, I'm just telling you my story. Okay, so I walked in. This little kid wanted to get out of his family or out of his life, so he picked the perfect timing to get run over by a truck. Right when the house next to our little on Ocean Avenue in a block and a half from the beach in Laguna Beach, the house is still there. Last time I saw it in when did I see it? 2007. I took my biological dad there after he hadn't been there for 35 years, and he was screaming walking down the street for all the drug dealers that he used to talk about back in the 70s and 60s, because they said when he told them when he comes back to Orange County and comes back to Laguna Beach, they would put him up in their house, and they weren't there. So he was like walking down all the streets screaming their names and like, "Where are you? You told me you would fucking be here when I come back." And I'm like, "Dad, that was fucking 37 years ago. This isn't fucking the 70s." Anyway, just in case you thought I was crazy, that's my dad. Okay. So this little boy, Timothy Giannakis, Gianakos, which I don't use, I did use when I first published my first novel because I was afraid the novel would be too revolutionary, but I guess no one really bought it, so it couldn't have been too revolutionary. Or maybe it is, they're just not ready for it, and it's going to be revolutionary when I die, or who knows, a million years from now they'll find it in some fucking library or somewhere, and everyone will like, no one ever fucking read this book. What the fuck's wrong with them? Anyway, or who knows. That's one of my 4 books I published that hardly anyone has ever read, called Myth Shattering. So I first published it as Timothy Giannakis, Giannakos, which is the body I took over. But so that's what a walk-in is. Okay, so I can get into the whole story about it, what it all does. This little boy went to get run over by a car. I was floating around in the ether or wherever, and I'm looking like, oh no, I need to negotiate with this guy because that looks like a nice little body. It was a little 1.5-year-old kid who was really spunky, and he had a good body, and he was on his little teeny white pony that his grandfather gave him for Christmas, and he was waiting for this truck that was in the shop next door to his Ocean Avenue house in Laguna Beach to back out so he can frickin' run right under the fucking wheels and get run over. And that's what he did. So I intervened and took over his body. And then I came out of underneath the car and I screamed at the owner and I said, "You hurt my pony," because the little plastic pony's handle was bent down. It was a white little plastic pony. I still have pictures of that. I'll put it up on the internet someday. But anyway, I'm digressing because I'm trying to tell you how walk-ins occur. I don't know exactly how Gary Douglas's walk-in experience occurred, but he had to be a walk-in because that's the only way he could be Josei Toda, because Josei Toda died before the body that he occupies, or after the body that he occupies was born. So Josei Toda died and went around in the ether, if that's what you want to call it, in hyperspace. We call it Ku, Ku. I don't know the kanji for that, but it's in the land of non-manifestation or non-actualization. Ku. What's another word for it? Non-substantiality. He was in the world of non-substantiality. There's a threefold world in this reality that you don't know because you're thinking it's just this one fold. But anyway, I won't get into that now because we're going to talk about the threefold world more in another video. I'm trying to not digress too much here. So Josei Toda went out in the world of non-substantiality, or the zone of non-substantiality, whatever you want to call it, Ku, which is bodiless entities hang out and chill, of the dead dudes. And he obviously looked into the future of who this guy Gary Douglas was going to be in the future, and he said, I want to be in that fucking body, because of all the 3 founders of Soka Gakkai, Josei Toda was the party animal. He was the one who would get drunk, doing Gosho lectures and say, who would fucking want to go to heaven? There's no women there. There's no alcohol there. I mean, who wants to fucking go to heaven, right? So he would always say these really controversial things, which he's actually says more now in this life. That's Gary Douglas. He kind of let down all the fucking, his hair down and everything, and he fucking says some wild shit. But don't ever take anything he says completely seriously, because he's a joker. He was a joker in his last life too. So anyway, Gary Douglas, I don't know if he's aware of this, and I don't know how to get a hold of him, because Access Consciousness is trying to get me to take down my videos, and they're not being friendly to me because they don't realize I'm on their side. So my goal means jail. I just strike that and reverse it. One of my moving targets is to start sending Gary Douglas the reincarnation of the second president of the Sogo Gakkai, Josei Toda, which he doesn't know that he probably is yet. All the books of the dialogues of Daisaku Ikeda slowly. I can't afford to send them all now, but since I've received so many thousands of hours of calls from Gary Douglas and from Dane here, and I never actually paid any money to Access Consciousness except $40 for their bars video, because there's no bars facilitators near me, and there's no bars class near me, because I live on the backside of Japan. Sometimes I live on the dark side of the moon, other times, and I'm not going to tell you when that is, because that's when I'm in hiding. Okay, I should put my dark side of the moon hat on. There we go. Okay, so in order this is what one of my moving targets is to get a dialogue before Daisaku Ikeda passes away and before Gary Douglas passes away, because Gary Douglas has always said, yeah, I'm gonna pass away soon. I don't know, I'm tired of this fucking planet and all these fucked up people. He's always joking like that. And he says, when I die, Dane's gonna stick his hand up my ass and use me like a freaking hand puppet. He's gonna say, Gary says this, and he's gonna do ventriloquist and shit like that. Which, actually, I would like to do that. I'd like to stick my hand up his ass. No. But anyway, I'm not getting that Daisaku Ikeda is going to die anytime soon, and I'm not getting that Gary Douglas is anytime soon. But it's probably going to take, because Gary Douglas is kind of a hard-headed person, that if you start telling him, listen, buddy, you're a walk-in, and you're the reincarnation of the second president of the Sogo Gakkai, and he probably said, I don't want to do anything with fucking religions and cults and all this, even though I would say that Access Consciousness is a cult, because it is a religion, because, well, anyway, I'll get into that on another video. I got into that on a few other videos. There's good religions and there's bad religions, and all religions are cults until they're officially recognized by the government. So since Access Consciousness isn't officially recognized as a religion, and it doesn't even recognize itself as a religion, therefore it is a cult. And there's good cults and bad cults, just like there's good and bad witches in the Wizard of Oz. So I like the fact that Access Consciousness could wear with a badge of honor the name cult, and I'm also the founder of a cult too, which I usually wear pink during the cult time. I'm wearing black now because we're talking about a different subject, and it's dark and cold here anyway. It's winter in Japan, and it's gonna snow tonight probably. And I got two different heaters on, and that one just fucking turned off. That's why it got so cold. Okay, I got the little freaking, what do you call it, heater back here, which is kerosene, which turned off, and I got the one wall-up heater up here that... Anyway, so if any of you guys have any suggestions on how... I'm going to start just sending them to Gary Douglas, and then I'm going to put also for the School of Infinite Possibilities, I think that's what it's called, the school that they're founding. The reason why I need to connect Sogo Gakkai with Gary Douglas and Access Consciousness is because Sogo Gakkai is way bigger than Access Consciousness, and the third president of the Sogo Gakkai, thanks to being mentored by Gary Douglas in his last lifetime, was able to create a mammoth movement of culture, peace, education beyond anything that Access could even dream of right now. This center that Access is opening up in Costa Rica, I think it's Costa Rica, called The Place, otherwise known in Spanish as, I forget the name in Spanish. Anyway, he wrote the novel The Place, and I just listened to it all. I gotta read it actually, because listening to it just didn't do for me. I'll listen to it about 3 or 4 times before I buy the actual novel online. because someone gifted that to me. So I get so much. I have thousands and thousands of hours of Gary Douglas staying here, and I still have thousands of hours of Rika Zimmerman that I haven't yet put all online when she was an Access Consciousness facilitator. And so far, Rika hasn't asked me to take those down. She's the only one who hasn't asked me to take them down. So I don't know if that's because she likes the fact that I'm putting up Access videos of her, because she wouldn't go ahead and do it now, would she? Okay, so maybe she knows that I'm not a frenemy. Not an enemy. I'm a friend of hers through all time, space, dimensions, and realities that we've worked co-creatively to weave this reality we will now soon be fully actualizing. Okay, so if anyone can help me out getting Gary Douglas to read these books, the dialogues that Daisaku Ikeda has been having with world leaders and other major cultural movers and shakers around the world for the last how many years, since he had the dialogue with Arnold Toynbee back in the 60s, 70s, I don't know, 60s. In the 60s, when he first did the first published dialogue, he's published at least 300 or 400 since then, with every major world leader you can imagine, Gorbachev, with Nelson Mandela. That one isn't out in English yet, I don't believe. He's also, I mean, major people like Linus Pauling. There's so many other ones that if I named them all now, it would take me all day. And anyway, I can't remember. I read so many of them that it's all, I got CRS, can't remember shit now. I got too much in my brain. I got to dump it all out. Freaking defragment my computer. Anyway, okay, so I need to get them in touch with each other. So I'm going to start sending in books to Gary Douglas and hopefully open them like, who's this guy Daisaku Ikeda, and why has he published so many thousands of books with many hundreds now with world leaders in many languages? And maybe he'll have a recollection, he'll have the awareness that I've had, that he's actually the teacher of this guy in his last life. Anyway, I can support Gary Douglas and Access not with money, because until Gary Douglas and Access is willing to do the reformation that SGI USA went through in the 90s and beyond, and still going through now to become the amazing organization it is now, I can't fully financially support Access as it is now. Not because I don't believe in Gary Douglas, and I don't believe in Dane here, and I don't fully benefit from all their teaching, because it's the final teachings of Buddhism that I'm also teaching, that hasn't yet been fully recognized in Sukagaku as the final teachings of Buddhism. I got kind of off on a tangent and I lost my train of thought. So I'm going to go to sleep now. It's almost 12 o'clock, and I don't usually stay up this late unless I'm on my music tours on the weekend. So if anyone can give me an address of Gary Douglas's home, that's where I'd like to send it to, so that he actually gets the book, not one of his secretaries, or not one of his many people that are trying to get me to take down my videos on YouTube and trying to say they can sue me and all this stuff. And anyway, I'm not going to take any of them down, because I need them to work with me, and I need to work with them. And I would be paying for the stuff if they were willing to be, perceive, and receive who they truly be and what they're truly teaching, because this was the final teachings of Buddhas that were taught on many planets throughout the megaverse, multiverse. And I've done that on many planets too before I was a walk-in. Since you guys have already went this far in the video and you haven't turned it off, you either thinking I'm absolutely crazy and you just like to entertain yourself, or you're actually thinking that something I say might be possible, and this might not be a fucking crazy nightmare dream that I'm having, but actually might be true. I'll go now into who some of the previous lives I had on this planet. The first one I came to know about was Sir Francis Bacon, and that's before I even knew who Sir Francis Bacon was. I studied philosophy not only 4 years at Soka University, well, I only took a few classes in philosophy, but I studied philosophy while I was studying everything else at that time. And I took philosophy at other colleges. One was San Ana Canyon College, and I tried to introduce the professor of philosophy there to Soka Buddhism, and she was kind of like, I'm into the old school Buddhism and the so-called what do they always say, orthodox, as if there's orthodox anything, because orthodox means unconsciousness, it means not thinking. So says the author of 1984, and I do believe he was right on that. Orthodox means not thinking, not needing to think, just going along with the bullshit that hasn't yet transformed into something better than it could have ever imagined it being. Anyway, that's what I think of Orthodox Buddhism. I think it's a pile of shit because it's not Orthodox at all anyway. Okay, so the only Orthodox teaching is the final teachings according to the founder of Buddhism on this planet, which is Shariputra. No, that's Shariputra. It's Gautama or Siddhartha, or otherwise known as Shakyamuni Butsu, or Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, he's just one of many, 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 many millions of Buddhas in this multiverse, like me and you and everyone else who's willing to claim, honor, and acknowledge their infiniteness. They're a Buddha. Okay, so I'm going to call it quits now. I just told you one of the people I was, Sir Francis Bacon. I'm not going to get into all the things he did that I'm finding out about now and why my body now wants me to know about that past life. I'm just going to really quickly say the names of two of the other past life people that are worth noting, because there's other ones that I was that aren't really noteworthy. But in the 1300s in Japan, I was Nichimoku Shonin. I don't know fucking anything about me in that lifetime because there's nothing written in English, but I do believe that if these doubters are right about this, what I call the final teachings of Buddhism that were supposedly, I get bitched at for saying supposedly written by Nichiren Daishonin, which they say aren't, and it might be that they were actually written after he died by who I was, which is why I'm resonating so much with them as true, even though it doesn't really matter who wrote them at all. It doesn't matter who actually preached the Lotus Sutra, whether it was really some priest after Shakyamuni died, or it was really Shakyamuni. It doesn't matter, because what's in the teaching is true. So if you realize the truth and you're willing to be, know, perceive, and receive the truth, you'll know that these teachings that I call the final teachings of Buddhism, that are so similar to Access Consciousness, that some claim are not the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, then possibly they were written by me when I was Nichimoku Shonin, but I haven't yet got to that. I'm going to do some more past life regression therapies with some of my past life regression therapists and see if more of that will come out in my sessions, because a lot has come out in my sessions about Sir Francis Bacon, and that he really was the author of the King James Bible, the official translation of the King James Bible, and he was also the main founder of the Rosicrucians, and he was also the writer of all the Shakespeare plays, and they were published Shake-Spear. They weren't written by a Willie Shakespeare, whose name was spelled differently in the plays that he published 7 years after that Shakespeare character, Willie, who was Slick Willie, who showed up late for practices and couldn't even read his scripts. He had to have someone else read his scripts to him because he didn't read English. He was illiterate, and he never read any other languages, and there's no way anyone who's illiterate could have written the plays, because the plays were rehashed stories from other cultures that hadn't yet been published in English. And he didn't read in Spanish, and he didn't read in Greek, and he didn't read in French, and he didn't read in German, he didn't read in all the languages that Sir Francis Bacon read in order to take those stories that hadn't yet been published in England or in English and put them in his plays, because he just rewrote the stories in a little different way so that the people in England would be able to make sense out of them. He retold many stories, which is what all great storytellers do. They retell stories. That's why all religions are basically rehashes of an old religion. So I haven't yet found the old religion that Buddhism was a rehash of yet, but Christianity is definitely a rehashing of another religion that was another rehashing of another religion that was another rehash. It goes back way, 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 way before the last Dark Ages, last Ice Ages, actually. Okay, so who was I in one other life that was noteworthy? His name was Plato. And when I read the great dialogues of Plato all through college, I would get pissed off that they were called Plato's dialogues because they're not Plato's dialogues. Plato was simply like in the orally transmitted teachings that were written by Nico Shonin. He was a stenographer for the person who was orally saying these. They should be called the lecture notes of Nichiren's final lectures on Mount Minobu. That's what they should. They shouldn't be called the orally transmitted teachings. They should be called Nico Shonin's lecture notes on the lectures given by Nichiren on Mount Minobu before he died. That's what they should be called. Anyway, I was there, so I remember. So Plato didn't do any of the dialogues. They shouldn't be called the dialogues of Plato. They should be called the dialogues of my mentor in that lifetime, which was Socrates. So they should be called the great dialogues of Socrates. I just simply wrote down what he did in the of course, I'm the character in some of the dialogues back to him, but it's mostly other people because I'm just taking notes because that's what I did. I took notes for him until he died, and then I started philosophizing further on from what he philosophized about, and added my own take on this and that with the Republic and other things. But anyway, I'll get more into that on another video, and I'm glad you guys stuck with me all the way to the end, and I'm glad you like these little flying things that are below me. Okay, peace out. Love you all. I'm not crazy. Institution, you're the one that's crazy. Institution, you're driving me crazy.